Are you wondering how to best support your child when they're in a friendship dynamic where they're maybe not speaking up for themselves as much as you might like? And maybe their friend is a little bit of a strong personality, maybe even controlling or dominating the friendship? Today's video is all about how to help your child from a place of real focus on social skills. So a place of really being able to grow your child's ability to speak up for themselves and have really healthy relationships. So how this can kind of play out, and it can be really from a very young age, is that our kids, it's kind of funny to see that the dynamics are very often there's a stronger personality and a more quieter personality in each pairing. So it's not always the case. We tend to, there are some friendships that will be kids who kind of feed off of the same energy. So whether that's two quiet kids in a pod or two boisterous kids in a pod. But it is really, really common for a child who's a little bit more dominating and controlling to have a friend who's a little bit more quiet, a little bit more likely to acquiesce, a little bit more likely to keep the peace. And the reason that dynamic can be so common is because the children actually see in the other person something of real value that they can really appreciate and love. So they kind of are just like, I really, really like how you take a different view of life. And it's kind of part of the human condition that we, not only are we very attracted to the things that feel safe and comfortable for us, but we're also very attracted to the idea of personal growth. So having a friend who has a different style to us is a really, really common experience. And it can happen not just through childhood, but also adulthood. If you talk to a lot of people who have adult children, I bet they could tell a lot of stories about their children's partners and their dating history, where they can see kind of that pattern playing out, where you have the stronger personality and the quieter personality matched together, sometimes happy and sometimes not so much. So really, when we think about this, it is such an important thing, because if our child is one of the ones who's more likely to be wanting to keep the peace or more likely to not want to rock the boat, then they're likely to have many of these friendships in their lifetime. Not because, the typical explanation is that the dominating child will seek out that child, but actually because they're both getting something from this friendship. That doesn't necessarily mean that every friendship of this dynamic is a match made in heaven and not necessarily healthy, and maybe we need to help them to look for other friendships. But it's also not necessarily the case that we need to stand up for ourselves in a way that means shutting down friendships as well. So interestingly, the reason for why this is important is a couple of things. So it's not just about the fact that your child needs to learn how to honor themselves in all of their relationships. So learning the skills that it takes to look at what is it that I need, how am I not getting that in this relationship, and how can I advocate that in a way that honors my relationship partner, so whether that's friend or whether it's a partner when they're older. They also need to know how to really connect with another person, how to understand where the other person's coming from. And finally, what's the problem solving that needs to be in place to really kind of work out what's going on there. So that's kind of the headline of what's going on here. But one of the most important reasons why this is an issue to take really careful and strategic steps with is that this is possibly the first time that you're supporting your child through something that they don't have to share with you. So they don't have to open up to you about how their friendships are going. Even when they're as young as 3, they can keep their feelings to themselves if they want to. And we want to honour them if they want to keep the feelings to themselves. But in order for us to have the maximum positive impact on our child, to be able to help them to work through what's going on for them, we need to create the kind of safety that allows them to share everything that they're feeling and needing with us. And we want to give them that sense of safety that we are not going to tramp our kind of perspective and our requirements for how they should behave, or preconceived ideas about how they should handle or how they should look after themselves in a relationship, this can often be our first foray into becoming the trusted advisor rather than becoming the parent who knows exactly what a child needs and telling them what they need to know. So how do we do this? So we start really in that place, that creating safety place. So the first thing is, when they open up to, actually the very first thing, I'll take myself back, the very first thing is recognizing does our child actually see an issue with this relationship dynamic, or is it something that we see and they don't see yet? If it's a situation where they don't see it and we see it, all your first step is just directing them to think about their feelings and needs. And here's the kicker here. You need to go into these conversations without an agenda. Your agenda is not, I just need Tommy to understand that his friend is just not healthy. If we go in with that agenda, we will miss signs where they let us know what's important to them. And also they will pick up on, she's coming to tell me something and I may or may not agree with it, and I may or may not want to share. And if I share something that is contradictory to what's going on, she might not listen or might not treat that as valuable. So I might not say what I have to say. I might not even want to go there. And particularly if our child feels very sensitive about this friendship, so if it's their best friend or their only friend, they can feel really sensitive about that, keeping that relationship strong. And so if we come in with this agenda of, I need you to understand that your friend is just not healthy for you, then that can often just close down their willingness to share, or even their willingness to pay attention to what's going on for them. So we're coming in, the agenda is not, I'm going to help you to see that this person is unhealthy. Your agenda is, I'm wanting to support you to focus on what are your feelings and needs and whether you're getting what you need out of this friendship. That's it. And you can see how that's a very neutral agenda to have. Now, if your child already knows that this is causing an issue for them and they're feeling really uncomfortable about an aspect or the entire friendship, then you can skip that step. They're already clear there. And then we want to really look into, what are the things that are making this friendship not as fulfilling for our child. And we want to describe those without association to the other child. So what that would look like is something like, for an introverted child, it might be, I need breaks between talking to people because I need space to kind of process what's been happening for me. And so I can't be doing activities constantly. I can't go straight from, what we do in the morning at school to morning tea break and play and interacting, and then go back to school and then play at lunch and then back to school. I need some space in the day. So you can see how that's very different to, because my best friend won't leave me alone. Do you see the difference there? It's like what I need versus what's happening to get in the way of that need. So really look at, and is there more than one issue? So really looking at, what are the things that I need that are not necessarily being met at the moment. Part of the reason we want to separate it from the friend is that we want to take away any blame. There's vast majority of circumstances here. The other person, the other child, just does not have any ill will or any requirement to control. Even if it feels like that on the surface, there'll be something underneath that they just are lacking in a way to honour someone else and themselves at the same time. And so we don't want to have any focus of blame, which also allows our child a sense of safety that if they bring up a problem with us about their friendships, we're not going to think poorly of their friends who they're very protective of because they love them. So when we get really clear on what are those needs described in a way that is just focused in what our child wants and needs, then we're going to look at, so what's happening in a day that you don't get that? So then at that point we'll look at, James just is constantly wanting to play and not giving me space, or James doesn't let me have a turn to be the leader, or, whatever the thing is, then we're kind of looking at what's going on for the other child. And in that case, we want to have your child feel the extending of your love and concern for your child. We want to extend that to the other child. So whether that's their best friend or it's just a friend that they feel sorry for and play with because they feel like they have to, or whether it's someone that they genuinely don't like and they don't feel like they can hold a boundary to get away from, we still want to extend that empathy and that care to include all the children that are involved. In the young ages, it tends to be 2 children that will have a dynamic, but sometimes it can be a friendship group. So we're going to extend that empathy and care. And that gives a sense of safety to the child that the tables aren't going to turn and all of a sudden they're going to be the one that's wrong. And also that we can actually hold an intention that we can honour what we need and what our friends need at the same time. And when we do that, we're going to look at, what do you think is going on for James that he's like talking when you need quiet time? And then in that space, when you ask that question, it's time for both you and your child to think about that. You might see some things that you can kind of pattern and go, okay, now I can see how that child might be struggling with transition, or I can see how that child might not be able to pick up on the signals that I can see really clearly in my child, but they just might not know. If they come from a family full of loud people, they might not know the signals that it's time for quiet time. So we want to look for those ideas of like, what's in the way of your child getting their needs met in this friendship? And it's not critical that we get it right. What's critical is that we're sending the message to our child that we can find a way for everybody to get their needs met, and we can be curious about what's going on for other people. So if we've got some ideas about what might be going on for the other child, and we've got a strong sense of what's going on for our child, then we move into problem solving. So what do you reckon might help? And this can be as simple as being able to confidently ask for what you need, which takes practice. I know a lot of adults who don't know how to actually ask confidently for people that they love to honour their feelings and needs. So we're going to practice that with our kids and maybe get some practice for ourselves as well. It's like, James, I love being your friend. I need quiet time after morning tea. And then how could we work this out together? Right? And then so we're going to encourage our child to handle that conversation themselves, because there's so much value in being able to ask for what you need and hold trust that me and my friend, we can work it out together. We can talk about what we need and try and find a solution. Now, obviously, there's a lot of intricacy that goes into honouring yourself and another person, and so often our kids might need some support. So when you're trying these things out, when things aren't going well, and particularly if somebody is getting hurt, then we want to involve the teachers where we need to, or the educators if it's in a childcare setting. We want to involve them in saying that my child is having some trouble speaking up for their needs, and this is what we're practicing at home. Could you help if my child asks, or could you help if you notice that perhaps it's time for them to set a boundary and they're not being able to speak up for themselves? And most teachers and educators are really, really comfortable to jump in and support our kids. So you want to be really clear, what are you asking the teacher to do? And then you're also showing to your child that we can ask for support from the adults around us. They're on our team, right? So we go through that, and then we keep practicing and we evaluate. Did this work? Did it not work? So for a child that might need some help picking up on cues, we can actually help our child to be more strong. That's a terrible sentence, but we can help our child to be stronger in speaking up. So if, for example, a young child who needs physical space from their friends might be taught to do a smile and a hand up. So the smile says, I am so happy to see you. And the hand up says, and I don't feel like a hug right now. So you can see how that's like a much stronger signal that can make it really clear to the friend what's going on. And then, of course, the other child might need some help. I had a parent this week comment on one of my posts to say that, my child is the dominant child, and I would love for parents to actually approach me with no judgment and just talk about how we could help our kids be like in a healthy friendship together. And so it's always a good idea to think about, do I feel like I could maybe speak to the other parent and say, my child really enjoys the friendship with your child, and we're working on this and this and this, and just wondering if you could help your child to this and this and this, or what ideas do you have? Like really opening up that conversation. That can be a really helpful thing to do. So then as time goes on, ideally we'll see an improvement. And if we don't, the trick is not to get anxious about telling our child that they have to get out of that friendship dynamic, because the more we try to push our child to make decisions that they don't want to have, the more they will just not share with us what's going on, the more we'll miss out. And so if you can lay the foundations from as young an age as possible, that we can talk about things and I can help you to get clear on what you want and then to achieve what you want, the more we'll have, it's kind of like not wanting to lose the battle and win the war, or wanting to do that. So that's the most important thing here, is that we keep those options, those lines of communication open. So then the last piece, of course, is how to set boundaries. It's like, if I can't get what I need, and I'm not able to get through to my friend, then I will need to have some stronger boundaries, which might mean cutting off that friendship and being strong about how we advocate for ourselves in that place. Really recognizing that it's no judgment of the other child. It's just that we've tried everything we know how to do and it's not working. And a child who feels like they have done everything that they want to do, they will genuinely be comfortable with learning how to set boundaries. The issue is when we go into boundaries too soon, you'll see your child just refuse, because they have a natural understanding that if I care about this person, I don't want to have my needs met at their expense. That's just a natural inclination. And so what we want to do is help them to see that they can get both persons' needs met at the same time. And if we, in the vast majority of cases, obviously not always, but in the vast majority of cases, we can get that to work. And once they've done everything that they can and it's still not working, they'll be far more comfortable to follow any kind of advice we have about boundary setting and choosing other friends. So I hope this has been really helpful. It's quite a meaty topic. I'd love to hear in the comments what has resonated for you and what will you do differently in supporting your child in their friendships. It would be awesome as well if you come back and let us know what changed as a result of you implementing these new strategies. And of course, this is a huge topic. So if this is something that you'd like to work on, definitely grab a free session with me. I offer a 15-minute phone call where we can talk about what's happening for your child and how I would support you to support them through that experience. And we can work out if what I offer is of use to you at this stage. The link to book that is in the description of this video. Thank you so much for being part of the parenting of the next generation.